What's
There
up,
we
everyone?
are.
What's going on? Welcome to
Hello.
Banner and Backbone. I'm Nick Paro, joined by my good friend Shane Yirak of the Firebrand Project, as we come today for Palantalk. Every Monday, it's your favorite discussion where we go tech, no fascism.
Technofascism.
And today, we got a good one.
Yeah.
Shane and I are going to be talking Peter Thiel and Peter's Pentagon and the Russian interference that we think's going
Yeah.
on and Russian meddling and attack that is going on to the U.S. So, hey,
Yeah.
what's up, Shane? How are you doing, man?
Going
It's
on,
good to
Nick?
see you.
It's good to be back. I feel like it's been like 2 years since I've been here. I know it's only been 4 days, but time is just not a construct that even makes any sense anymore. Here in the fascist states of America, everything is going in Mach 7. So it's good to be back with you. It's my favorite way to start the week. And so yeah, I mean, like you said, there's a lot of things that I think have evolved very rapidly. And when I say rapidly, I don't mean like actually rapidly. They've been happening a long time. They just haven't been covered, and now they are so blatant that the media is starting to cover them. These are the things that you and me have been talking about for months and months. And our viewers probably were not as surprised by this news as the majority of everyone else. Um, but it is starting to kind of surface through the cracks, particularly, I think, what's going on in the military,
Mhm.
um, more so than the Russian. We've always said that Trump's a Russian plant, Krasnov or whatever. But I think maybe more so. Maybe it's not as much him as much as the people around him at this point. So I mean, why don't we start with that, and then we'll do it. I feel like maybe it's a little out of order, but I feel like there's kind of it's more headline right now. It's more televised than the other thing we're going to talk about. So, I mean, yeah, dude, like, what do you think in the last week and a half, going back to the first 28-point plan, where the alarm bells started to ring with the leaked Witkoff call? Like, what's your take on all this right now? Where do you think it's going? What do you think has been exposed? And especially with your intelligence kind of background, as you're looking at this from that perspective, from trying to understand the information from your professional angle. What are you seeing right now?
Um, well, I would say there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
um, a lot of stuff that's going on that is highly unusual and warrants a lot of investigation into activities. And so I let's go into your assessment of what do you think's going on is I think just like you said is I think the Trump regime itself is full of Russian agents and full of Russian assets.
Mm-hmm.
And they have been handpicked or placed there through decades of either witting or unwitting intelligence collection from people or usage of those individuals to further Russian goals and assets just in general. Um, and it's resulted in a Russian mob taking over the White House. A Russian style oligarchy and mob trying to take over the White House through not only Donald Trump, but those around him, like you said, Steve Witkoff, who keeps going to Russia by himself and doesn't have any translators or any US assets with him and only relies on Kremlin translators and goes in by himself and pushed this fake peace deal that they're currently trying to work on to force Ukraine basically to surrender, even
Yeah.
though they're winning. Um, and these are not the actions that an ally does to somebody who is fighting a war and doing well at it. And then we were talking about folks like before the show. I get his name wrong.
Dan Driscoll,
Is Driscoll is
Secretary of the Army.
U.S. Secretary of the Army Dan Driscoll going to Ukraine and basically telling them that they're in a dire situation and they need to surrender to Russia and that they're going to lose here soon. Basically, doing the work of Putin.
Yeah, did you see he told them? He made a statement to Europe saying that Russia is stockpiling long-range missiles to strike Europe if they continue to support Ukraine.
Yeah, like, and hello to everyone in the audience as you come on in and join us today. Appreciate everybody who's here with us. Yeah, this piece. This is not a peace deal. Let's stop using that word. This is a
capitulation plan.
This is a mob threat. Like, this is a threat of violence. Of you either do what we want or we're going to let Russia just start using more weaponry that they have stockpiled, because Russia does have stockpiled weaponry. Yeah, it's extortion. Thank you for that. It's extortion. It's a quid pro quo. They need something out of this deal. And it's pretty much, what does Russia need out of this deal, which is land and minerals and rare earth minerals that they have seized in an invasion of Ukraine. It's not a war, it's an invasion. And just like I started talking about, because the way that Chris Goldsmith talked about it yesterday and others have been talking about it, is how do we talk about like what Pete Hegseth is doing, thinking about the Pentagon angle of it, is what Pete Hegseth is doing, and how do we talk about it without using the terminology that they're trying to push and make us believe is going on. And they want us to believe that we're in a war. We're not. We're in a at most, we're in a armed conflict. However, what Pete Hegseth is doing, because we're not officially at war, they have not put any supporting evidence in or put any congressional approvals or requests or for information, is they're just killing people. They're acting like pirates. They are being terrorists to other nations. Like, they're terrorizing Venezuela and they want to invade them. They don't want to attack. They don't want a war. Or am I back?
Looks like. Are you back? Are you free? Oh,
I am.
There you are.
Am I back?
Okay.
There
last thing we heard was they don't want to invade them, or don't want to.
They don't. It's not really a war. It's an invasion. They want domination. Yeah, like what was just said. They want to dominate. It's a domination thing, and it's about it's an invasion, and not, to me, not really a war. Like, nobody wants this. There's no conflict.
We literally did and why this would never work. And we spent at least an hour, maybe a little over, talking about why, based solely on geography and the implications of what occupation would look like. And you laid it out very clearly, from not only, from your background in terms of being in the military and how, a military operation would work, but beyond that, as well as the long-term implications of actually being able to maintain any force there. And you have to wonder, I think we should call this Trump's special military operation, because I think that's what this is. Stephen Miller's special military operation.
This would be the US's Ukraine if we did this. Like, in modern terms, like, yes, it would be a parallel to Vietnam. But if people want an actual parallel of what it would be like us trying to invade Ukraine. like Russia trying to invade Ukraine, that's the parallel. Is we would be invading another country for mineral rights and for minerals and oils and for economic gain, which it's not going to. Like the economy is collapsing right now, and trying to build a drone war economy is not going to help prop it up. Um, but I don't even know if we should call it a special military operation. It's just it's just a set of illegal orders from a
Yeah.
pedophile and a Russian asset. Like
Yeah.
that's I we need we this is an interesting one because this is where we go into some of our like word game of like how words are important and what words we should use. And we'll obviously we're going to loop this into like the tech side and the Peter Thiel side here because there's plenty to talk about there. Um, is we need to stop thinking of this in a war situation, and we need to just talk about how illegal it is, and how there is no legality behind following the orders of a pedophile and an extortionist and a rapist and a blackmailer and a fraudster, like an adjudicated fraudster, liar. Why would anyone believe his orders should be legal, like at this point, and violating international and US law to say kill them all?
That's
This
crazy.
would be our Ukraine. This would be our Ukraine, and that's where drones come into. Is we're not prepared for drone attacks against us. Just like Russia, we are not prepared
No.
for drone attacks against us on our military, on our infrastructure, on our cities, on our just civilian population. Like this is if we go to war, if we attack and invade Venezuela, which we're realistically probably going to do here soon.
Mm-hmm.
We've already violated Geneva Conventions. We've already violated U.S. law. And at this point, we should really be just talking about the illegality of what they're doing, and using those terms and talk about the Russian assets that are placed in these areas and how where money is coming from and who is funding these individuals. You're looking into the Teal fellowships and the Teal foundations and how those are placing certain individuals in specific spots, like our Secretary of the Army, Dan Driscoll, is a Teal plant.
He's a childhood friend of JD Vance. I believe they went to school together. Because didn't JD Vance go to Yale? Wasn't that his? Where did he?
I think that's where he went to, where he gets his, that Ivy League education that he wants for himself and his kids, but not for you. Don't worry, you don't get that Ivy League education. You're not white enough, techie enough, or fashy enough for them.
It's funny because none of this is funny, but for turn of phrase, you mentioned something, and I want to talk about a comment you made in regards to we're not ready for drone warfare. And there's a couple things. One, in terms of like we talked about Venezuela, the big thing right now that we've discovered, and what I can assure you they will have access to because of their connections to Russia, which the irony is not lost on me, that Russia is supplying Venezuela with weapons to use against the United States while simultaneously manipulating the United States to back them to remove themselves from Europe. But I digress. Russia currently has the most effective fiber optic drones in the world. We're talking they can go 50 kilometers on a fiber optic cable, which makes them entirely resistant to jamming. Occupation, in terms of what that would look like, imagine them just constantly launching drones from the jungle that cannot be jammed, that cannot be stopped. It just you better believe they are manufacturing a shitload of FPV drones right now. You better believe that they are going to be, and that also, like we talked about,
or the number of Shahed drones that are already there, or the we talk about a lot about, sorry to interrupt you,
No, it's
was
okay.
we talk a lot about aerial drones, but we don't often talk about water drones and submersibles, and the fact that we have a giant navy just sitting there in the Caribbean waiting to be attacked.
What happens when
Waiting.
they sink the
They
fort? What
purposely
happens?
want an attack, and they want it to happen. Like there was reporting out a couple weeks ago about a possible failed CIA attempt to commit a false flag event on one of our own ships, the USS Gravely, and hit it while it was in Trinidad and Tobago's dock and spark a war to kill our own people and hit our own vessel. And the USS Gravely has been on the longest active mission. They were in the Mediterranean and in the Gulf, fighting the Houthis. They were, or in the Strait of Hormuz, I think it is,
Yeah,
um,
like fighting the Houthis
fighting the
by
Houthis.
Yemen.
Like, yeah, by Yemen. They were doing a real mission, and then possibly we wanted to fucking blow up our own ship. Like, if there is real evidence to that, somebody better fucking come forward and be a whistleblower, because that's treason.
Oh yeah, that I mean it is. It's all it. But it's funny you say that because it's like I feel like at this point, if the ICC wanted to, they've got Trump on war crimes, they've got Hegseth on war crimes, they've
They
got
should. They need
and
to.
they should. And you see Europe Germany starting to talk about how they need to focus on different alliances. The fact of the matter is that the Russian intervention is so blatant, particularly with getting caught with Witkoff at this point,
Yeah.
that they are having to face the fact that the United States could genuinely be a threat to them, not just a useless ally or a neutral party, but a potential threat. And so that's where we see like Driscoll going over there and telling them to basically surrender. And there was a report I saw where it would be more costly for Europe to capitulate on Ukraine than to fully back Ukraine. It would cost more money if that were to be the case. And I guess like it just goes to show, I think, where I think the Pentagon and what it means to have it be this compromised and to have so many different parties invested heavily monetarily into the Department of Defense, not the Department of War. That is not a legal terminology for the Department of Defense. You can't just arbitrarily change the name with an executive order. That's bullshit, and they can't do that under the Constitution. Only the power of Congress can rename an institution like the Department of Defense. So do not, and if someone uses that term, correct them, because that's fucking fascism, and don't let them do that. But I mean, I think, like look at the Saudis, right? And their blank check into mineral deals within the Pentagon. Look at, Witkoff and Driscoll now basically acting as a Russian proxy agent, sharing Russian propaganda. You have to wonder how deep does it go?
I don't think we really have to wonder any longer. I think we have a lot of evidence pointing to that it goes really deep, because we also forget, like, or people don't even talk about anymore, is right before the election, it came out that Elon Musk had multiple meetings in private with Peter Thiel and has access to US secrets throughout the entirety of our system at this point, from our defense platform and through an internet platform that he controls. Peter Thiel has had contact and money, at the very least, come from Russia and Russian oligarchs and Putin adjacent individuals. We see him in the Epstein files. We see we see Peter Thiel appear in the Epstein files with money that we know is influenced and sent, because that's as as terrible and as heartbreaking as the pedophilia is. That's not even the most, like, that's not even all of it. That's only just a layer of what the Epstein files are about. The underlying layer, even further into that, is the money laundering and the money movement and the use of Russian assets through Israeli means to undermine
Yeah.
and destroy America using mob tactics. Trump was groomed to be a Russian asset, and he has been groomed his entire life by Russia, by Israel, by the Saudis, by individuals who are in this group that are currently getting their rewards. This has been a decades long effort to get Donald Trump and an administration around him that is funded and influenced directly by Russian propaganda. Um, and so there needs to be a lot of investigation into all of this. And we can't do this alone. Like, this has to be a congressional investigation. There have to be congressional hearings, and there have to be lawyers and legal teams who are looking into all of these different aspects of, like, what is treasonous and how can it be applied, and how are these people assets, or are they assets, witting or unwitting? Steve Wickoff is a witting asset. He's a businessman trying to make money. I wrote an article about this a long time ago, over a year ago now, I think it was.
It doesn't always kind of hurt your
Oh,
soul
just
a
a
bit when you write
yeah,
something like forever ago and you're like, oh, it got like 100 or 50, likes or whatever. I wish it got more because, now Witkoff is a successful foreign agent. At the time he was still a budding potential asset, right? It's crazy.
hmm
It's
yeah,
crazy.
and like, so getting into like how this fits in with Peter Thiel and Thiel's Pentagon,
Really quick, I
and
want to interrupt you because there
yeah,
was a comment that I want to address because it's very thoughtful, and it's Valerie Smith. I applaud your insight, but I do want to kind of adjust maybe your frame a little bit because you mentioned that Trump or Trump, which I prefer, I think Trump ran a shadow government with all these people during Biden's term. I don't. I think this is an important narrative that we need to shift in the fact that Trump is not doing anything at all. In fact, he is falling asleep all the time. I mean, I
yeah.
don't think he's awake, for half of the day. And we really need to shift the narrative away from what Trump is doing because he's not doing anything. If he called Biden Sleepy Joe, the dude is sleeping all the time. Like, he's not governing, he's not making decisions. But you're right. There was a shadow government that Biden was actively fighting his entire presidency, and that was the oligarchy and the techno fascists and the private interests that were either residual, but the direct players were not there, but you couldn't get rid of the economic leverage that had already been deeply seated in the federal government. And so I would say it's more of what the techno fascist neo reactionary movement was doing during that time to soften certain institutions and pave the way for when they did successfully infiltrate through Trump. But I want to credit you with that initial thought, and that I believe that you are probably absolutely correct. I would say that I would bet. I haven't personally looked into this, but your intuition. I find that intuition these days is probably right because they want everyone to question their intuition, because it is literally like very intuitive at this point that, like, oh well, if they've done this, then they've done that, because there is no they don't stop. and for things to go as quickly as they have, because it hasn't even been a year. Like it feels like it's been a
Yeah.
decade, but it hasn't even been a year. I mean,
Mhm.
this has been incredibly fast paced takeover. You can argue on the merits of whether it's been truly successful or if it's, stable or possible to, keep it going in the long term, but that's an entirely different discussion. If you just want to talk about the speed at which they've really dismantled the institutions that exist to stop these things that they're doing. They've done it really in record times. I think Hitler and Himmler would blush to see what they have accomplished on a scale that's much larger than what they had to do in Germany in the 1920s and the 1930s. So sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you, but I just wanted to, because that was a very insightful comment, and I wanted to address that. So
No, I
good,
think
good
it's
on you.
great to address insightful comments like that, and I think it's also important to address like the overall aspect is Donald Trump is not running this. This is Donald Trump is a puppet. He's a puppet for them. It's not about Trump anymore. It hasn't been for a while. It probably never was. He's just the mouthpiece, and he's really good at being a TV star. That's what they needed. They needed to. They've created a reality show around him where he is always right. His world is the only thing that's happening, and everybody else around him, specifically Stephen Miller, Russ Vought, and Peter Thiel, are running the show. Peter Thiel threw JD Vance at the minimum because JD Vance is a puppet of Peter Thiel. He was raised and groomed and indoctrinated by Peter Thiel through his entire life. That's who he is. He is a Peter Thiel puppet, and Peter Thiel runs the show. Um, and how they do it is through Palantir and through the techopoly and the monopsony that they want to create, where Palantir and Peter Thiel owned companies, not just Palantir directly, but Peter Thiel owned companies and Peter Thiel owned representatives represent both the distribution and the manufacturing of all defense so that it's held under one individual's overall control, which is Peter Thiel. He owns
Yeah,
the Pentagon.
and they
Um,
and to clarify, they've done that. I just want to be, like you may have said this, and I may have missed. But like they've done that. They've created the monopsony. So this is no longer a hypothetical situation. This is an entirely real development, to the point where there is no, they have a monopsony in the Pentagon, at least.
yes.
And you can point to Driscoll as a element of their power, of the benefit of their position and their level of influence, because you can tie him back to these, and I think it's important to have these terms like a JD Vance Republican or a Vance Republican. You've got different terms, and I think that it's often understated how important JD Vance is in this nexus. I called it the triumvirate of evil. And it's Peter Thiel, JD Vance, and Stephen Miller. Because you have kind of different sides of the coin in this triumvirate, but you can usually, and the more I watch, the more I think that maybe Stephen Miller is more on the outs than the ins these days. He has a lot of power. I don't know how integral he is to the decision making process between Vance and Teal. Um, I
Miller has his own agenda
Yeah,
that
I agree.
doesn't fit in with
Yeah,
it does. It's convenient enough to fit in with theirs for now, because he does have a large stake in Palantir, I believe. Um, Peter or Stephen Miller. I think he owns a fairly good investment in their company. I'll have to double check that if it's publicly available at all. But one of the things too, like, we can help stop some of this. We can actually do things against this, um, and help push back against folks like this. Because one of the things that is underutilized, and yes, it is only a financial penalty, it is a fine, are Hatch Act violations. None of these people who work in the executive branch, outside of the president and the vice president, and a select few people, are exempt from Hatch Act violation um, rules. And any of these people who are currently in and promoting partisan ideas and partisan doctrine as political, like the biased media awards bullshit that they now have on the website. Actually, let's add that into our conversation today a little bit. I'll pull up that biased
Yeah.
media thing,
While you
because
do
I
that,
think that
there's a
goes
good
into it.
comment here. Another good comment. Neuro hodgepodge. Forever insightful. And actually, I want your opinion on this too, Nick. She asks if you described it as a tetrad, who would be the fourth, in my opinion. And that is an interesting idea. And I think I would have to say either Russell Vought, with the Christian nationalist side
Yeah,
of it, or alternatively, if I was gonna say a group, I would say like big oil, or like just like big oil, petro, or you could say like Gulf state influence, right? You could say like there's, to be honest, like the reason I like the triumvirate is not per se because it's like it's there's a lot of opportunists. Okay, so there's the um, core element, but then there's a lot of opportunists. And one of the things I think, and I don't know if you've heard about this, Nick, but I'll briefly share this with you after we go through some other stuff here. But I think it's pertinent is when you talk about opportunists, North Korea, and what they have accomplished is staggering. Like it floors me.
yeah. I'll have to look into it more before I can comment
Yeah,
intelligently.
but I'll before the end, I'll talk very briefly about it. But what are your thoughts, Nick? I mean, on that, I'm curious because like I think a certain way, Nick thinks a different way, and this is such a complex web, you know.
Yeah. Um, I mean, the two most invisibly but visibly powerful people in America are Stephen Miller and Russell Vogt. They're the two most influential. So I think he would fit in really well as if we wanted to go to a fourth.
Yeah,
And I think he does have a lot of say and pull. Um, and it would be interesting to see or read into and see if I can find, or if Shane, you might know this with some of the research you've done, is how connected Vote and Peter Thiel are to each other, and how
yeah,
influenced by Thiel Vote already is, or the other way around.
right,
Um, because Thiel is using Christofascism and this movement to gain power, to get the power they want for their post-humanism, TESCREAL based society, which requires which requires 2/3 of the population in the US to be wiped out. Um, because sustainable population in the US apparently is only 100 million. We're over 300. So do the math, 2/3 plus would have to go. And I don't know. I think Vote would be.
I think I agree with you. That
I
was
would
my
say he
first.
would be the quartet of evil, or the. We'll have to figure out a good moniker for them. They are the four horsemen of
The
the
Four
apocalypse.
Stooges.
Um, they're the four horsemen of the fascist apocalypse that they want
Yeah,
to create.
yeah. Unfortunately, that sounds
And
cool. that's the thing. I don't want them to sound cool because
Yeah,
they're, you know, you know, if you have a good name, that's properly demeaning, for those four in the chat, because the four horsemen are low key badass. You know, like actually they're pretty high key badass. You know, that's cool. Not that we want them anywhere in reality, but you know, they're just
yeah.
not cool enough. They're a bunch of bald white guys, you know, with
With
really,
micro ego syndrome.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I
Where were you going earlier? I'm sorry I derailed you.
no, that's all right. I'm looking at another comment in our chat. Is ideologically that is an unholy trinity from Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
Christian nationalism, white nationalism, and techno fascism. I actually don't even think it's really a trinity. It's really Abrahamic fascism, or Abrahamic nationalism, because it's a combination of Jewish fascism, Jewish nationalism, white nationalism, Christo nationalism, Catholic nationalism too. And those are very different things. And so some of the folks in power want a theonomy, which is where they take religious law, meld it in, specifically old Christian religious law from ancient Israel, where you actually get to stone people. Like they want to go back to that sort of shit. That's called a theonomy. So that's one of the things they want. That's really the major. That's the Heritage Foundation in that group, is the theonomy behind it. They don't really like Catholics, so Catholic nationalism doesn't really fit in quite as well, with their overall plans. And technofascism is the other point of that. Is the so I think the Trinity is really, um, theonomy, well, very similar to what Patrick said, but it's more broad. It's just they want a theonomy, they want a techopoly, and they want control through fear. They all have the same end game, which is control through fear. But getting back to, let's say, get back to Peter Thiel and get back to how he's owned the Pentagon and where this, comes in and how they play this long game is Peter Thiel in June, I think it was reported, was when we started what's called Detachment 201,
Mm-hmm.
which was an initiative to, it's the executive innovation unit to innovate technology and integrate technology forward options into the military, starting mostly with the Army. Detachment 201 is part of the, um, U.S. Army Reserves, and four executives from Meta, OpenAI, and, let me see, I have an article with it.
I
Palantir,
just
Meta, and OpenAI had four executives, dropped into tech executives to help streamline the military process and integrate technology further into, the systems. And so that started in June-ish at the latest, and has very quickly culminated into some of the drone outfits and operations that are becoming very obvious, that Shane talks a lot about, and you report on, is all of the drone activity. And this is where I want to get back maybe to Dan Driscoll. And if you could give a little backstory on him around his drone,
yeah.
influence and where he sees everything, because he's in Ukraine, like we were talking about, or was in Ukraine, telling the Ukrainians that they're going to lose. You guys are screwed. The Russians are going to beat you. They've got all, like, you just have to give up. But the
Mm-hmm.
Ukrainians are advancing and innovating drone technology in a way that is both remarkable and amazing that they're doing, because they're showing that a small nation can push back and fight back against a supposed superpower. But it's also revealing how outdated and desperately behind we are on defensive technology for drone warfare, and what that means with folks like Dan Driscoll and Peter Thiel owning the US drone
Yeah.
industry. So I'll hand it back over to you.
Yeah, I mean, so just to add to your point, so Driscoll, I was just was curious, so I looked it up. Driscoll was integral in the formation of Detachment 201. He announced it in a memo. He was the guy who made it happen, and I believe he was put in there in February, so that would have been only a couple months. That would have been one of the first things he did, correct? Because when did that happen? That happened a long time ago, or several. It was closer to. Um,
I reported on the Palantir stuff and them becoming
in May.
commissioned officers in June, and I think I caught it a little bit late. Um,
Yeah, so June 13th is the article where they're talking about him, um, you know, doing that and becoming part of the putting out the memo itself. So that would have been June, July. So the month before June is when the memo came out.
May.
So May. So there you go, right? Like the Driscoll is very important here. And he's one of those figures who emerges for me a week or two ago when I see that he is the person who is announcing this new initiative to move away from large defense contractors to commercial. And so I look into him because I had been writing about this like a week before I see this announcement. I wrote about how they had basically set up all the dominoes to fall to get their monopsony in place. And then Driscoll was what prompted me to look into that and to basically confirm that the monopsony itself was successful. So what I think is interesting and what I think is in a lot of ways in the nature of extortion, I wouldn't be surprised if it was J.D. Vance who said, hey, Trump, send Driscoll, send him. Because we were talking before, and it's very abnormal for a liaison for something like this to be the Secretary of the Army. That's not, you would normally send your envoy to Ukraine, right? You would
Yeah,
have someone
we
who's
don't
not.
really have a diplomatic corps anymore. That was one of the things Project 2025 has hollowed out is Marco Rubio's job and what it means
Mhm.
to be a diplomat and have diplomats. And instead, we're sending businessmen and idiots and Russian assets like Steve Witkoff and Palantir plants like Dan Driscoll to lie to our allies and promote Russian propaganda and force a Ukrainian surrender
Yeah.
when there's no reason to. Um, and it's all part of their end game, which on the US side is get all the data and
Hmm.
then use that data to surveil people and create a surveillance state within the US that is based on drone surveillance technology and AI
Yeah.
and predictive profiling and the destruction of privacy.
Right.
Um, all of this too involves folks who are directly related to Peter Thiel, like Shyam Sankar, who
Hmm.
is a
Yes.
CEO or is a CTO
Oh, right.
at, no, he's a CTO, I think it was. I wrote 2 articles about him, and I will link them in our show notes. And we've actually talked in depth about Cheyenne on Palantalk. So I'll link that previous episode when we talked about the Defense Reformation. Um, and this is a lot of that playbook. It's a lot of the Defense Reformation's playbook, which was a techno fascist playbook to create a monopsony or a techopoly where only certain tech companies become the new defense contractors. And only certain tech companies owned by Peter Thiel specifically and his fellowships become tech contractors for drone industries. And
Yeah.
this is how they close the loop, as Shane talked about in one of his articles, which will also get linked in our show notes because we've written so much and talked so much about this. Like I could literally link everything we've done, be like, here you all go. This is what's going on. Like the Palantir has taken over the military industrial complex and is the industrial complex by any other name.
Yeah. Yep.
They
You know,
used JD Vance to as he was the deal. He was the deal that the tech bros made to become allies with Trump. Trump installed Vance. He was their deal. He was Palantir's deal to say, you will get everything you have ever desired. Your dream of being King of Kings, Emperor Trump will come true if you put JD Vance in place and allow the techopoly to take over every single piece of the defense contracting industry, use Doge to steal all of our data and aggregate it into a single place and take it out of secret compartmentalized zones where things are compartmentalized for our safety. This was all the deal. This
yeah,
was the deal that was made for JD Vance to become vice president so that the techopoly could take over. And that techopoly has a lot of financing from Russia. And it's Russian interference into all of this, and Israeli interference into all of this, and the mob state, and how it's very mob state based. It's thug tactics, it's thuggery that we're going through, and not a presidency in any way. Um, and yeah, the back channel diplomacy is how can they get the most information the fastest,
yeah.
without regard to cost.
And so, just to give you guys some more background on Driscoll, so you know, he went to Yale in 2014 with JD Vance. Um, so him and Vance have a pre-existing relationship. By all standards, he was a pretty awesome soldier. Okay, for better or for worse, he was deployed in Iraq, uh, and so he. Let me see. I had it here. I was just reading. I want to make sure it's Iraq, not Afghanistan. Let's see. Is he was in Iraq as a platoon leader in 2009. And he was in there for 23 months, which is pretty long, I guess. I don't know if that's true or not, Nick. That's what,
That's roughly the amount of time that you would be um, stationed in that role. So, reading
that's
from his
average.
bio, he was commissioned in 2007 as an Army officer
Yep.
through OCS. While
Yep.
on active duty, he led a cavalry platoon in the 10th Mountain Division at Fort Drum, New York. I know a lot about the 10th Mountain Division. And yeah, he was deployed to Baghdad in Iraq, supporting Operation Freedom in 2009. He is a fairly decorated soldier and he served honorably. And I will not discredit his service. He served
Oh,
honorably. He did his role and served. However, he then became a
traitor.
military liaison contractor and politician, basically,
Yeah.
a corrupted because that's what it is the corruption behind it, is the money behind it, is he went to become a lobbyist
Yeah.
for the military industrial complex, which a lot of senior officers seem to do, which is highly discouraged, by the way, is to jump from the military directly into a very political role, because then you pretty much disregarded all of the non-political stuff that you were supposed to do while you were in the service. And so he is dishonoring himself by the
Yeah.
work he's doing now, because
Yeah.
he's become a corrupted um, politician and a lobbyist for the drone industry. And that's all he wants. He wants AI and drone takeover. And I'm reading through some of his bio and other stuff too. And it's all about drones. All it
Yeah.
is
I,
about AI and drones.
Yep. And he to just to clarify, he's the youngest that there's ever you've seen in the role, I believe, to date at 38. So and I would speculate too, them meeting in Yale when JD Vance was first um, being groomed. He would meet Teal at a speech he gave at Yale. That is where that would be when he basically was chosen. to be groomed for whatever reason. And so that's, I believe, their first interaction happened in a speech at Yale. So I wouldn't be surprised if JD also then goes and says, "Oh, here, by the way, meet Dan,
Yep.
meet Dan," or through JD, because Teal's very crafty. Maybe he tells JD to go to these people, but it's actually not uncommon, looking especially at the US NDA, which I talk about a lot, which is primarily made up of former special operations leadership,
Mm.
former Pentagon veterans. So something that Teal has worked on a lot is lobbying former soldiers in high positions within the military to bring them to his side with money, because I think it's the ultimate corrupter. And so at which point now we're saying that that seems to be a trend where you just it keeps building and building. And
And another person, I'm going to jump in here, another
yeah,
person
go
that we
ahead.
didn't talk about in all of this, and thanks, Madam Power, for putting it out there too, is Larry Ellison and Oracle and
Mhm.
their influence in all of this. And I think we'll have to do separate episodes around Larry Ellison and
I'm
Oracle.
ignorant, to be honest. Like
Yeah,
I yeah.
Oracle owns a lot. Oracle and Larry Ellison, they're controlling the means of communication. Um,
Mm.
we're, this is all part of the Seven Mountain Mandate. If we want to really get back into it, into like where this is all coming from, at least part of it from a Christo nationalist side or from the Christo fascist side, is this is the Seven Mountain Mandate. So they need to control the military, the government, communication, education, family, pretty much everything. But controlling of the release and the ownership of the distribution mechanism and the um, content like management or viewing mechanisms. So
They own all the broadcasters, right? Is
yeah,
that what's
Oracle owns
all the
the
broad
broadcaster
Okay, yeah, yeah.
and the means of distributing it. So they own both, like how you hold the media and how you distribute the media. Um, and so they're and I, the Oracle is very ingrained into the military. Yes, and it's. I'm not going to say like in all of this too, like we're not advocating for the US military to fall behind. Like I don't want the US to fall behind in any means in terms of defending itself or being prepared for an attack. However, I want the American best interest to be maintained and consolidating power, the distribution and the manufacturing and the technology that controls all of it all behind within like two or three or four people is a really bad thing. They're trying to show that this group of individual oligarchs can run the government without other approvals. Like that's what they're trying to prove. They're trying to prove that the executive and anything related to it is the only piece of the government that's actually necessary, and that it needs to be through thug power of these individuals like Peter Thiel, Mark Zuckerberg, Larry Ellison, um, JD Vance, Stephen Miller. These are the players, and a lot of them received money and payments that came through the Epstein system and the money laundering scheme there, and are controlling members of our government,
Mhm.
like such as JD Vance, as we've been talking about. Um, and so we need to find a way to. One of the things that we are going to have to do as we move forward is the accountability aspect, and how do we hold people accountable and who these people are. And we need to make sure that anyone in the executive branch who is an officer in the executive branch in any way and hired in it because they're the only ones who fall under the regulations of the Hatch Act. It's executive branch only and not VP or president. I did some reading into it. so that I can intelligently talk about this one, is we need to hold them accountable for Hatch Act violations in their positions. And
It's so easy. They all
it's
like I've been saying that like, you're correct, and it's like the first thing, one of the only laws I remember from school, is
and
the
like
Hatch Act.
it's
Because like, yeah, it would make sense that like you shouldn't be able to use the presidency to like make a shitload of money, or I don't know, double your net worth.
well,
Um,
the president doesn't fall under the Hatch Act. Only the president and the VP are outside of the Hatch Act. Everybody else in the executive falls under it. There's there's specific wording in there that actually excludes them from it. That being said, I looked it up. Stephen Miller, your role falls directly under the Hatch Act.
yeah,
And you, sir, are violating the fuck out of it.
yeah,
And yes, it is a civil offense. It's not a criminal offense. It's like a $10,000 fine. But $10,000 fines stack up real fucking quick when the only thing you do is spew Hatch Act violations on a daily basis and spew
mhm,
hate and spew things that are not protected, like not covered. He is his Stephen Miller can easily be sued for Hatch Act violations. Russell Vogt more than likely can be sued for Hatch Act violations due to the fact that he represents and works and is still part of the Heritage Foundation and
yeah,
groups that actually do political promotion and political ideology. All of these people and anyone who's in the executive branch who does the act, say the person who created the website for the media bias, which I'm going to show off and pull up because we need to talk about that piece of
oh
property
yeah,
before we move into the ending of our show
yeah,
or the final segment of our show. Because we're going to go to space as we
of course,
always do,
of
friends.
course.
But the White House made a website today or put out a website, and I'm going to try and find it here real quick. And it is all about propaganda. It is all about silencing the media. And there it is. We're going to
Is this
share it.
on the White House website?
This is on whitehouse.gov. Whitehouse.gov. Our government is promoting this.
Cool. Wow.
Misleading, biased, exposed.
Oh, they're talking about themselves, right?
Yes, I actually put a post out. I was like, every accusation is a confession.
Yeah.
Misleading, check.
Okay.
Biased, check.
All right.
Exposing themselves, definitely.
Definitely. Absolutely.
So, like, this is the government's website. This is whitehouse.gov/media bias. This is a Hatch Act violation.
Yeah.
What Kristi Noem did, playing anti-democratic propaganda in airports, is a Hatch Act violation. These things can and must be sued in real time because that'll get them down. That'll prevent the propaganda from spreading. And I'm not a lawyer, and I don't have a legal team representing me, but there's tons of lawyers and legal folks out there who could and should be helping and doing these things.
Yeah. Instead,
And I think
they're
we need to
running their own
expose this.
personal injury suit companies and using liberal media to promote it.
Yeah, like our first person is Mark Kelly, talking about how soldiers and service members are required, and it is your oath and part of your duty to uphold the laws by not following an illegal order. Very specific, illegal orders. You do not have to follow illegal orders. In fact, you are required to not follow them and report them. They're using this website as a propaganda machine to attack Senator Mark Kelly, an American hero, a pilot, an astronaut, and an actual hero, to call out what? That he told people that our laws are clear, that you do not follow an illegal order, that's fucking horseshit, is what they're trying to do.
So
They're
ridiculous.
using this as a way.
The offense,
The
truth.
Democrats and fake news media, that is a Hatch Act violation. That right there, that one statement, the truth. The Democrats.
Sounds like Stephen Miller's writing this shit. This sounds exactly like Stephen Miller.
Yes, and that the like, it's okay. There's like, it's okay to call out political adversaries and political rivals in real ways and say,
How do we
hey,
get on
this
this
is
list?
fake. I don't know. That was my.
I want to be on the website.
How do I get on this list? Like, what do I need to do to be the most truthful and the most honest that I can? Because I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh, well, then I want to be on this list, right? Like the BBC is on here. The Associated Press has some good articles on here. Like, I might just go through this list and be like, oh shit, look at all these great articles.
Yeah, if you want a list of a comprehensive breakdown of exactly what they're doing, go to their website where they've aggregated all of their wrongdoings for you and put them in one place. And like that honestly is almost dumber, because now what I would recommend if I am telling you, if you actually want to figure out everything they're doing wrong, just go to their own website where they have aggregated every article that is calling out their wrongdoing and put it in one place. That's a good day's reading right there. They're so
Give me a
dumb.
second. I'm going to play this little video.
Yeah.
Because it just started on loop and I was like, wow, this is propaganda. This right here is how we have to fight back against shit like this. We have to continually talk about this. I'm going to play this video. I'm going to mute myself so it doesn't duplicate audio somehow. But it's only 19 seconds long and it's stupid.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
The president has never given an illegal order. These people know what they are doing.
Our laws are
that.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
I want to stamp their video. Seditious. You're seditious.
Stupid.
They're seditious. Give me my stamp.
Fucking
I want my own
retarded.
sedition stamp.
Yeah, I want my seditious stamp.
Send it to me in the mail. My FOIA request, I want the sedition stamp. I'm gonna, every time I see his face, seditious. Seditious. Hey, we're gonna do.
My balls are so.
It's this pardon. This turkey is actually a crypto guru. He's got a whole new turkey crypto market. I'm gonna pardon him. He's invested billions of dollars into my companies. He's a great guy. He may also be a drug smuggler. Turns out that I named all the turkeys after white collar criminals, so I'm actually pardoning criminals when I pardon the turkeys. The turkeys are just a cover.
And the auto pen, it didn't sign any of them. I didn't sign any with Stephen Miller's hands. I don't know any of these people. DJT out. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And that's it. What the fuck are these people doing?
Stop! Stop!
Guys, this is the Hatch Act violation administration. Yet nobody is taking them to account right now. And we need to. We need to take them to account. I'm going to figure out what I need to figure out on that is can we do anything specifically? Because normal people can sue. Normal people can file lawsuits, but we don't have the funds to do it ourselves. And so we need to find larger sources and larger networks that would be willing to help do things like that. Like the Contrarians, they do a lot of really good work. They sue a lot. They do a lot of legal work. Or Mark Elias and crew for citizens. Citizens for Responsible Ethics in Washington, I think is their, like, how their name spells out. But they do a lot of legal suits like this. And how do we get attention of like SAM, the Save America movement, to help partner with preventing like this sorts of bullshit from getting spread? Because that's all it is just bullshit being spread, and Hatch Act violation on Hatch Act violation on Hatch Act violation, because they think nobody's going to do anything about it.
Yeah.
And that's the whole, I think that's the whole fallacy of this administration and the tech bros specifically. I think looking back at Peter Thiel and JD Vance and Larry Ellison and Russell Vogt and Stephen Miller, they're doing these things, and Pete Hegseth, they're doing these things because they don't think anyone will actually stop them. They think no one will take the time to actually uphold the laws, because the Hatch Act ain't going to uphold itself. It's up to us to uphold the law.
Yeah. It's Congress. It just all goes.
It's
back, Congress. It all goes
Congress.
back to Congress, and that's the make or break here. Like that's we will, and I don't know. I'll be honest. I've heard that maybe Congress flips before the midterms. That could be huge. I don't know for certain. I feel like I've heard the Republicans say they're going to do a lot of things. I'll
believe it when it happens.
Exactly. If that did happen, that's great. But
if they unseat Mike Johnson, that's great. But I'm not banking on it.
No,
not yet.
No, it's Congress. Congress or bust. And that's really unfortunately where we're at, but it also goes to show just how important our engagement is as citizens, because if they're going to steal an election and we all turn out to vote and we all say on the exit polls that we voted against them, and then they steal the election, it's no longer plausible and it loses validity. So the big thing is going to be voter turnout, voter participation. Also, pick your candidates not based on their party but who they are, and vote for real good people who care. Whoever you see on your TV who's paying a lot of money to run an advertisement, I would be skeptical of them because they need that money. I would look for the guy or the gal, or however they choose to identify, who's pounding pavement and who's really talking to people, and not John Ossoff who's hitting you constantly on, I need money. I'm the only Democratic senator running in Georgia. Like people like that, you don't want to vote for them. You want to vote for someone who's not somehow getting billions of dollars. That shit's expensive, guys. Like you don't just do that. It costs a lot of money to run that.
Yes.
That just that Congress. That's where because Congress has the ability to take Peter Thiel's money. They have the ability to do everything. Like you think that, like if you think that we're fucked, we're only fucked. Like you could pass a sweeping bill under one bill that freezes their assets, that basically outlaws their intervention in the Pentagon, that does all of these things at once. You could craft that legislation. It's not only possible, it's what the function of the government is to regulate. That could be done, and it could stop everything. Congress could pass a law that orders the military, basically creates a situation where the military can no longer operate in the capacity that they're being used under federal law. Because ultimately,
easiest way to do that, get rid of the armed conflict post 9/11 global war on terrorism rules and laws, because that enabled imperialism to come back and colonialism through the guise of white nationalist war. And that's what it's turned into. Folks like Wajahat Ali and Qasim Rashid Esquire have been yelling about this for ages. Like, this is we built the infrastructure for our own demise, but we can stop it. Like Shane said, we could stop it. We can stop. Like it also could be as simple as nationalizing SpaceX and Starlink. And yes,
remove the executives take the money and federal, like the government could say, you know what, these companies are so deeply integrated into the government, the only viable option is to seize them and federalize them. And because that's, like the law
And
can
it's
be
happened
whatever
before.
we want it to be, right? Like it's a free market. We get to choose if they get to monopolize the market. That's on the people. If we want, like, it's all propaganda. It's all misinformation. It's all, whatever. Like you can take a organization it's all it is, right? A company is a organization. It's a structured entity that is run by people. If you remove the people at the top, or I don't know, put them in jail for pedophilia because some emails about, I don't know, Peter Thiel suggest that Epstein's asking him if he likes a certain type of thing, which is
We
pretty
know
much
what that certain type of thing is.
right. We know he likes little boys. Okay. So, like, I saw that and I was like, oh, thank God. Like, oh, thank goodness. Like, you get him too. So I mean, I know we're over our hour, and I would just say to everybody, before we get the hell off Earth for a second, is, the Epstein files are still the kryptonite. It still takes them all out. It shuts down JP Morgan. The whole leadership goes to jail. JP Morgan is the financial heart of this entire entity. JP Morgan and BlackRock. You pretty much, you take out JP Morgan. You take out just about all of their nexus of power. JP Morgan was, Epstein's personal bank. Like, just read what Ellie Leonard is doing with these Epstein emails in JP Morgan. And Zev Shalev. Like, it is very obvious. And it's, they are doing a lot of things right now, because I also think that, this is like this is a make or break moment for history, for the world. We're in a make or break moment for the world for a great many reasons. But one of them is, whether we, the people, can reclaim our country before too much damage is done, not just to America, but to the world and the global order. And, what it means for every single human being on this planet. It's not about us. It's about the future of humanity and whether or not we can stop this monster that we have allowed to grow in our country, because America is going to decide whether or not the world is effectively ended as we expect it to be. And that's on us. So, you should have a lot of pride in the fact that you could be part of saving the world. But also understand that, like, you have a responsibility, whether you like it or not, because you live here. And, if you have kids or grandkids or want to have kids, well, it's not you per se who's going to be really suffering the consequences. It's the people who come, after me, as a young guy. Nick is still young guy, by, any standard, and the people who have to continue to live through this. So,
and what this leads us to is the future can be bright.
yes,
the future,
like
where
a
we
star.
go into space and
Right.
we launch Elon Musk and Peter Thiel into a supernova, and we drop Curtis Yarvin into a black hole, or we send Mark Zuckerberg back to the race of cyborgs that he comes from. We can all do that. We can do that. But now we're going to escape from them for a little while and relax and talk about some cool shit, because we always like to, because part of Palantalk is space talk, and which we're still working on possibly doing a separate show specifically just around space and just hanging out and having space talk. Because why the fuck not? Who doesn't
There's
like
so much cool
cool
shit
stuff?
to talk about in space. I was telling Nick beforehand, literally every single thing I read is like, oh yeah, we were wrong about that. Yeah, and we were wrong about that. And get ready, we're going to learn about another thing that we were wrong about. Something that you would probably think that we already have figured out, and that's star formation. That way, it turns out, thanks to the best telescope ever built, ever, the James Webb Space Telescope, which took over a decade to build, and Congress almost killed it multiple times. James Webb is remarkable. But what we have now learned here is that potentially studying, going way back in the universe, we're able to do this because of James Webb. And so, this is one of those things where when you look at what's going on in terms of how they thought, stars formed, it's dominantly hydrogen. So the most abundant element in the universe is hydrogen. So the first stars were formed primarily out of hydrogen. And we've talked about this a little bit before, but anything after heavier than helium in terms of astrophysical, terms is a metal. Okay. So you take hydrogen and then you put it under pressure and you get helium. And those two are the lightest elements in the universe. So these earlier stars, these protostars, what they're called, with James Webb, they're able to look back farther and farther and farther. And we've discussed how, based on this, we've realized that the universe is probably at, twice as old as they think it is because of how redshift works and how light itself kind of changes as it travels over time and loses, a little bit of energy is not the right word, but loses its its intensity, and it does redshift. But what's interesting about these protostars is that ultraviolet radiation is something where when you have a star, these protostars, they're not capable of making an ultraviolet radiation as far as we know under our current system. They're not, they don't have the sufficient elements and whatnot involved in their physical creation process to do this. So when they're looking at these early protostars in a particular constellation, which they talk about here, I was looking at it earlier, Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer. And these stars are very early stars in terms of formation. So what they found is that these stars are giving off ultraviolet radiation. And they can't do that, supposedly, according to our current models. But instead of, just assuming that this comes from the stars, like all good scientists, they try to say, well, what is the explanation that supports our model? And they were looking for things around the stars itself that would create the ultraviolet radiation. Ultimately, they determined that it's not possible, that these stars are in fact doing something that is, according to our models, impossible, which means that we have to reevaluate protostar formation and how main sequence stars are created. And it looks like he found a little video here as well.
Yeah, it's going soundless. It's kind of cool to see what the
yeah, for sure.
the little highlights and see all these pictures while you're talking about it.
And so what I think is really remarkable about this is how we just have started to see through James Webb such incredible discoveries. Like every time James Webb looks at something, it changes our perspective because James Webb sees in infrared, and we have not been able to look at the universe in what is arguably the most prolific source of light, because our eyes don't see infrared, which means our normal light spectrum, like Hubble, they're going to be limited in what they can see. But the farther something is away, the light will redshift. So if you're able to look at things through the lens of a redshifted telescope, it unveils an entirely new reality. You can go back farther in time because they are certain that the Big Bang is, whatever that was, is the catalyst for the universe that we see. In regards for just about everything else, including the timing, how long this has been going on. I think that the general consensus in the scientific community should be, well, we should probably just throw that out, you know, and approach it in a different way, because that is just so, you know, this is one of those things where, you know, this particular cluster is 450 light years from Earth. Okay, so, you know, and that's always, I saw Neil deGrasse Tyson had this great clip, and my dad sent it to me. But the craziest thing about light is, so light moves so fast that it is not affected by time. So basically, the comment that he made is that when you look at something through a telescope, what you are seeing is that light at the exact same time that it was generated, that it came from that star. So while it takes 450 light years for that light from the stars to reach us, it's still, as far as that light is concerned, has been just an instant of time, which is kind of mind-boggling if you think about it, that it's like, as far as that light, it's only been a second of time, because it just goes to show how time is relative, how all of these things we seek to consider and are trying to put these things together, and yet we have so many things to discover. And I always say, and I haven't said this in a long time, so I'm going to say it again, is that science and discovery is the one thing that can unite all of us. If you look and want to see, there's one collective program where the United States and Russia worked together very well. Was
The space.
Space unites everybody. If we could just turn our gaze outward, and, you know, seek to understand the greater cosmos, if you will, and understand our place in it, we would cease to, you know, want to kill each other. But it's because you have these people who want to control everyone and want everyone focused here and not working together, because divided people are easier to control, that they are attacking science. And it's something that we need to cling to with our dying breath, is the what NASA and what exploration and science represents, because it really needs, we need to appreciate just how unique our situation is, and in terms of the scale of what's going on, and how, like, you know, we're not going to get another shot. Like, we are all very lucky to be in a particular place, in this particular massive void, in a universe that is in a cluster of galaxies, that is in a galaxy of its own, which is in a particular arm of the Milky Way galaxy, in one of many, many solar systems, on one planet, on a rock that just happens to be the right distance from a sun, that happens to be the right type of sun, the right type of star to provide enough light to a planet that has a strong enough magnetic field that it's not stripping off all the atmosphere, with enough water, and all of these things. Okay, we got one of these. It's just our Earth. So, you know, we
may as well take care of it.
You might as well. It's not like, you know, there's an abundance of these.
Yeah, it's not like we got another one sitting in backup. Like, we don't have one waiting in the wings. We're so excited. Like, we have so much possibility. There's so much out there that we could go explore, that we could learn, that we could imagine, that we could create, trying to get there. And instead, we're fighting over whose sky daddy is more important than the other sky daddy. Like, that's what we're fighting over, is we're fighting over sky daddy, and who has the meaner one, and who wants to kill more people and other the most. That's what we're fighting over. Instead of working together, unifying ourselves. The space race was an arms race of sorts. Yes, it was an arms race, but it was also an arms race that ended in a peaceful solution that helped prevent a nuclear war. Like, the space race helped prevent nuclear war.
Mhm.
We need more of that. We need friendly competition where it's not about beating each other, it's about besting each other with the better equipment so that we're all better off for it. Like, that's what space is about to me, is like seeing all this and learning that we are wrong
Yeah.
or that we didn't have enough understanding yet doesn't mean like what a lot of Christians will say, or a lot of folks that I've heard in the past is, oh, that theory was proven wrong, so all of science is wrong. They're all lying to you. No, it just means we didn't understand enough and we were too young or we were too ignorant and we just needed to learn more.
Yeah.
That's the difference between what Shane and I do and what all of you folks here do with us, all of our friends in the chat. Is you want to know more. You always like asking that question of why or how or when or what caused it. You guys, you all like learning. You all want to be engaged and see something cool and creative and see new possibilities. That's what space is. That's what the James Webb is. That's what this ultraviolet radiation showing us, these images that are in front of us right now of the gathered by the European Southern Observatory showing clouds in the Ophiuchus star forming region. Like, we wouldn't have these things without science. And here we are in the US turning back the clock, rolling back investments, taking away from the ability of NASA to do its fundamental role in advanced science and, say, weather monitoring on the planet, because the more we know about our planet and the more we know about other planets, the more easily we can terraform and solve global warming on our own surface and save ourselves. Because you said it last week on a show, Shane, was terraforming. If we want to go to space, the first place we're going to learn to terraform is Earth, because we have
We
to
have
save
to.
Earth before we go anywhere else, because we fucked
Yeah,
it up.
we have to. Like, it's not like and that's one of the things. And if you want to get a better understanding of kind of what's going on with the planet today, come to the Firebrand Report today. I'm going to spend at least a half an hour talking about what's going on, because it is urgent. And in terms of, like, I was just really just trying to hammer home how unique our place here is in the universe, and how much money big oil has spent on downplaying the damage that they have done, and are actively doing. And this is not, a situation where we are even, we cannot continue the way we are going and expect a outcome that is not apocalyptic. I'm
Yeah.
using that word literally apocalyptic, and not on the scale that they say by 2100 or 2050, but in the next decade to 15 years, because we are already seeing these things, and all of the models do not accommodate all of the other things that humans do. So come to the Firebrand Report today at 2. I'm going to lay all this out for you guys, because I think it's important that we talk about this thing, because again, it's on us. America has the money. If we took on our military and we said, you know what, the biggest national security threat is the environment, and we took that money and used our military and the researchers there to help do the right things, to go on humanitarian missions and maybe try and save these things, because that is a threat. Their job is to protect us. There's
Yeah.
things we could do. So I digress, but yeah, come to the report today. I'm going to talk about it.
I think that was a great way to bring us back to Earth too,
Yes,
was
sir.
and launch ourselves into selling ourselves a bit and where to find us. And I think, Shane, you gave a great primer for yourself, is join Shane at the Firebrand Project. Like,
Yes.
he is working his butt off. He is doing some incredible research, some really great investigative pieces, unearthing a lot of information. Support him. Go become a paid or free subscriber to him. Paid really helps. I know it's hard at times because everybody's tight on budget right now, but become a paid subscriber for Shane. He deserves your the subscription, and the work that he's doing is incredible. Help fuel what he's doing. Shane, sell yourself a little bit more too.
Yeah. So, Nick's setting me up for success here. I founder of the Firebrand Project. I got big goals for this. Where this is going to go is eventually we're going to become a think tank. We're going to get researchers on board, and we're going to work like crazy to become a watchdog agency for the world in particular. But right now, it's just me working my butt off and writing investigative journalism. My biggest thing I think I do right now to contribute is the Firebrand Report. It's a daily news show where you can come and get an idea of what's going on geopolitically with real-time political predictive analysis. I'm pretty accurate. I usually get it. I get it right 85% of the time. So, it's worth coming to kind of just get my perspective and I'm getting better at kind of seeing these patterns. So come join me and the other Firebrands for the Firebrand Report every day at 2. It's probably my biggest thing I do right now. I do Firebrands United. I connect people like Nick on a much lower level because Nick is a madman, constantly running around doing all these things. But I like to bring discussions together. Our tagline is Forging Dialogue and Burning Bright. Come be a Firebrand with me today. It's a project. It's not about Shane. It's about us. It's about changing the national dialogue and changing the conversation. And I can only do that with you guys' support. So come, like Nick said, become a free subscriber, become a paid subscriber, and the same goes for Nick. I'm gonna give Nick a minute here too, because Nick does phenomenal work, and I have been working with Nick for I would say 7-8 months.
Almost since, well, I've been here for 6 plus.
Okay, so probably
about 5 months. We've been working for a while together now.
Yeah. And so me and Nick, I cannot give higher praises to anyone on this platform. I do not have a firmer respect for anyone in terms of what they do, as well as just a genuine friendship with this guy. He's incredible. So go and support him. He's a poet. He's a composer. He's a veteran. And he's a sharp guy, and he's doing it for all the right reasons. And he's sick of this shit, like the rest of us. So go support Nick and his work, because just like me, he's doing very important things. And he is part of this movement that we're going to need to unseat these people who have capitalized and taken over the space of independent journalism, that claim to be independent journalists or not. And he's part of building this coalition that will topple Midas, that will topple Aaron Parnas, and put real people with real voices in small people in the limelight. And that's what we all need to be doing together. So
thanks,
Nick,
man. Thanks, brother. And it's not even toppling. It's making them better. It's forcing them to be better by us being the best version, forcing them to see what the best versions of journalism can be, or independence can be, or talking about chronic illnesses openly. Like, come join me. That's sick of this shit. I am sick of it. That's where I do a lot of my mutual support and mutual aid and community building. And I talk about chronic illnesses and the impacts it has on me, and how it changed my life in a lot of ways, and how it's led me to here, and masculinity in general, and how we can be more masculine without the hate and the garbage that comes along with it. And pushing groups further to the truth and foundationalizing their truth and forcing them to do the things that they said, to have integrity and live up to their promises. And at Sick of This Shit Publications, where I do my homework, that's where I'm being honest. I'm brutally honest about things. I'm open, but I do it in a way that isn't shilling of the MS, like Midas Touch is doing. I don't do rage bait headlines. And we try and I try and be as truthful and honest as I can. And I learn, and I'm willing to correct myself when I'm wrong. So come join me at Sick of This Shit Publications, but also come join me here And Shane here, and Melissa Corrigan, and Lawrence Winterman, and Frederick Pogue, and Walter Ryan, and Ellie Leonard, and Stephanie Wilson, and all of our other
And
fantastic
Marlon Weems. We're
Marlon
going to get
Weems is
Marlon
a
Weems.
friend. We have friends like Tara Devlin, Christopher Goldsmith, Evan Fields, Centered America, all part of supporting and growing and contributing to the Banner and Backbone Network's growth of truth and civics that are easy to understand, that are fact-based, that are actionable, that are things we can hold on to, and ways that we can push back creatively. Banner and Backbone is a space of creative pushback. It is a media network built on collaboration, creativity, and transparency. So come help us. Come help us restore integrity, service, and ethics. Rise with us to become a better America. And we're doing a 60% off sale for B&B right now for a one-day sale for December 1st only. So if you're listening on December 1st, come join us for 60% off for Cyber Monday sale, and help the network grow, because that will help fuel things like Banner and Backbone being able to become, say, founding subscribers to Shane Yirak and the Firebrand Project, to help fund researchers, or to put out grants or donations to our contributors to be able to give back. So come help us. Come help us, because we're listening to you guys, and we want to do what you all want and are listening and need. And we're here to help build that community and give back. So if you're already a subscriber, already a paid or free subscriber, thank you so much for your support. Thank you, everyone in our audiences who come and support us every time on Substack, on YouTube, on Twitch. We're growing every week. And yeah, just be part of this community. We love the growth. We love the friendships that are coming out of it. Shane and I have become really good friends over the past 15 episodes. We're on episode 15 here. That's at minimum 15 weeks, probably closer to 20 now that we've been hanging out together. Like, it's awesome. I love being able to do this with everyone. We're also going to try and set up additional membership types, maybe through Ko-fi or donations and things like that. That's takes time and effort to get done. And so I'll try and start setting up some of those if there are other ways people want to contribute. But the big thing is, become a free subscriber, become a paid subscriber if you can. And if you really want, become a founding subscriber, become one of the backbones of the banners, and help us really build this thing strong. So Shane, before we close out, any last thoughts, my brother?
Guys, Banner and Backbone is going to be the heart of what we're doing here. And so I really do encourage you to be part of Banner and Backbone, be part of, Nick's Substack, be part of the Firebrand Project. Those are ways that you can be part of something, because I promise you that we are not going to stop. And we will be dogged and relentless, and we will climb this ladder, and we will fight for this space. We will fight for integrity. We need your help to do that. And so if you want to see this be the norm, if you want to reach more people, know that by supporting Banner and Backbone, myself and Nick, you really are supporting people who will not stop. We will not stop. We will keep fighting, and we will win, because we know what's at stake. So support something that matters, because we will make good on our promise to you. And that is what I will leave you with, is I will stake my reputation. I will stake my word on that, is that me and Nick, and I know Nick will say the same thing, is that we will not stop fighting. So join us.
We won't back down.
No.
And here, Banner and Backbone, we have the backbone to stand up. And in the end, just remember, this is Palantalk on Banner and Backbone, where we like tech, no fascism. Thanks, everyone.
Fascism.
And have a great afternoon. We'll see you all next week for another episode, and catch Shane later today for the Firebrand Report. Thanks.
All right. Be good, everybody.